Welcome to Evolution of the TARDIS Interior Edition, or as a slight edit was suggested, was Interior, or I should say Inside Edition, where it's bigger on the inside. Basically, we're going to be talking about over the years, the TARDIS, like the Doctor, updates or look. Do you have a favorite era of the console room? Do you have a favorite room that we've explored? Is there a room you'd like to see explored? And that's where we're starting from. My name is Bruce. I'm part of the CONCOM, and I'm going to be navigating us, hopefully, well, through the consoles and the rooms and what the interior of the TARDIS looks like through the many years, 58 years that we're working on right now. And I'd like to introduce or have the other panelists introduce themselves. That probably is easier than anything else.
Well, I'll start. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff, and I have been attending a console room since the beginning many years ago. So excited to be here for console room 2022, Satellite 9. I'm a lifelong Doctor Who fan since I was so young I don't remember my first story. So I don't know, about 4 or 5 years old. So kind of in the mid 80s. And I have a particular affinity for kind of anything TARDIS related. I have a TARDIS, the actual police box, tattooed on my body. So I'm in it to win it when it comes to anything TARDIS related. So very excited to talk about TARDIS interiors with all of you today.
Welcome.
I'm Matt Savicle, and I've been a Doctor Who fan since 1996 in the TV movie. And I've attended every console room, and I'm very excited to be on this panel. I also co-host a Doctor Who podcast that talks about different Doctor Who books, and it's called the All New Adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
Nice.
I'm Bill Evenson, and I have attended every console room too, including the virtual one. Yeah, I've been a Doctor Who fan since the Tom Baker era. So that's in the US, I don't know when that is. The 80s, probably.
Is that the 70s Tom Baker, or is that the Curator era from the 50th anniversary, Bill?
Yeah, that's my favorite Tom Baker story.
Super.
Is that his console room that we're in?
It depends. Aren't they all his? They're all theirs, aren't they?
I mean, that it looks like a museum, but is it actually his TARDIS?
I mean, there were roundels on the wall.
Why are you trying to wreck the panel?
Maybe we'll get into it. We'll see.
It's a possibility.
That's right.
One doesn't know.
That's
Anyways, just to let everyone know that we're actually recording this in the past from when you're probably watching it. We're recording on December 19th. So we're not doing this live and in person on January 22nd. So I guess we should get started and start off. We'll probably go through somewhat chronological so that we can take a look at things, and we'll kind of refresh your memory of it with a couple of pictures along the way. Let's see, we're gonna go right here and share. And season 1 basically stayed like this, and from Hartnell right through Troughton, didn't do much changes. I wish it was in color, because I'm sure that they use some bright colors and things just to make it show up in black and white. But I from the way it started, I liked it.
I think the original console color was kind of a lime green, wasn't it?
It was a pale green, yeah. If you go down to season 7, Bruce, that is still the original console in color, and because it was black and white, things that were pure white had a tendency to flare the camera. So the console, that season 7 one there is the original one, and it is as you can see, a pale green, and even into
Mhm.
season 8, season 9, it really kind of stayed a pale green, even though the show was no longer in black and white.
Mhm.
But that's how they made it look white, was with a green color.
Yep. And I liked for across the classic series anyways, I really liked the Roundels. I think
Mm.
that they tied everything together
Mhm.
very, very well.
Mhm.
And I was very jarred when we got to 25. And it's like, wow, that is so different. I'm not sure I like that. But throughout the time, I did like the Roundels in place in the background.
One of the
Yeah.
things that strikes me about the original console set was kind of the added extra room that we got to see
Mhm.
with the kind of the beds in it in
Mhm.
was it Edge of Destruction and inside the spaceship, but then
Right.
also like that extra bank of computer monitors and
Mhm.
kind of almost like an antechamber,
Yep.
which
Fault locator. Yep. All that stuff.
Mhm.
You got a real sense of, and of course you get this later as well, but from the beginning, because the TARDIS, looks like a small, rectangular police box, but then inside is this sort of vastness, and of course it became even more
Correct.
vast, which we'll probably get to at some point. But yeah, to see all of this, sort of crammed inside this little box was really amazing. And in those really all the way through, I mean, even the first several seasons, I mean, right through for sure all the black and white era, and then really
Mhm.
into the first few color seasons as well. The arrangement of what we saw in the interior in the control room changed based on what else was set up in the studio. So
Mhm.
in the first story, in the very first episode of An Unearthly Child, you saw a very vast control room, but then that would really expand or contract quite a bit, depending on what
Mhm.
else was set up in the studio, how much they needed to use the control room set, etc.
Mhm.
And certainly as a young viewer, I never noticed that, because I was just so enthralled with how the control room looked. And I agree with you, Bruce. I love the Roundels. And I probably noticed when I was a kid that those, some of them were an actual physical wall, and some of them were a
Mhm.
photographic blow up,
Mhm.
in the mainly the black and white era, though those blow ups did kind of creep into the Pertwee era a little bit,
Right.
as well. But they were working with the budget that they had, and to me it was
Correct.
fabulous.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
guys mentioned the fault locator. They had a few different things. They had the food machine.
Mm-hmm.
They had
Mhm.
the time space visualizer. They're always
Mm.
walking around in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I too like the Roundels. I especially like in those photos where you can see how beat up they are.
Yeah.
Like Clay Hickman
Yeah.
posted one just the other day where he had a close up of one of the Roundels, and it looks like somebody kicked it or something. It just
Cut it
got a
with a
big
knife.
dent in
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you mentioned Clay, because if you want to really go deep on TARDIS history, TARDIS pictures, police boxes, both TARDIS and non-TARDIS related, I mean, Clay's Twitter, which is at Clayton Hickman, goes very narrow and deep on all things sort of TARDIS related. So if you want to do some more digging after this panel, I highly encourage you to check out his Twitter, because there's tons of great photos there.
Cool. Cool. So again, things kind of stayed the same, season 1 through season 7, where Pertwee basically took it out of the actual TARDIS to work on it because he
Mhm.
was trying to fix it and get off planet Earth.
So I suppose
And
it's debatable whether that counts.
I mean, it's a console. I mean, it is
Mhm.
part of the interior, but now moved to the exterior.
correct.
Okay. All
I
right.
count it.
And then he really rebuilt it. And then that's what you had in season 8 when he was able to be set free.
Yeah, that's right. And still seeing those same, if you look at the picture that's showing there from season 1 and then season 8, those
Mhm.
Roundels, those are the same. The console itself is actually largely the same as well, but with a different sort of guts for the column inside the rotor there, and then obviously some
Mhm.
changes to the panels on the console. But again, going back to what we said earlier, still you can see kind of a pale green, because they
Mhm.
just hadn't bothered to make it white yet.
Right.
and then there's
And with color, or I mean, with black and white, they needed to do very bright colors in order to make it appear dark and light. Otherwise, everything would look very washed out.
Mm.
And so that's why they did some of the colors that they did.
Mm.
Then as far as the roundels go, in season 9, I'm not liking the effect of those, even though they're still there.
Yeah.
And those were only in one story, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
they
That's
were
the Time Monster.
very limited. And I'm glad.
Walking up holes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I actually
Yeah.
don't mind them, but they were definitely they didn't quite feel right.
And we got a peek inside the Master's TARDIS in the Time Monster as well, right?
That's true. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the
Mm-hmm.
inverse of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Yeah.
true.
As I was looking at, and I forget which one, there was one where they showed the Doctor's TARDIS and the Master's TARDIS, and the only difference was the Master's had a hallway into a back room, which the Doctor didn't really show in his, and the main door was different.
Yeah, if you look at so that season 13 photo there, so I think what you're referring to, Bruce, is probably the Time Monster as well. When the two TARDISes are inside each other, and the Doctor's TARDIS has materialized the police boxes in front of what in his console room would be the doors, and then in the Master's TARDIS, because the doors as we would know them are blocked, and his TARDIS's chameleon circuit was disguising the ship as a bank of computers, and so the door sort of opened outwards like that. So that door or that opening behind Tom Baker in that season 13 photo is that same entryway from the Master's TARDIS in the Time Monster. So that stayed the same again, sort of right the way through, because why change it if you don't need to?
Right. And then we carried on, and doing slight upgrades. As I think of what they did in the new series and say that it's more of the desktop that got changed, it seemed to make a little bit more sense to me. Like, oh, okay, well, you might tweak this, you might move something around, and yet it's still basically the same.
Yeah.
And that helped me understand all of the changes in total.
Yeah.
And here the console loses its green color.
Yep.
It looks a little more futuristic with like the metal finish, I think.
Yeah, you've got more metal, more sort of like dials and things that could be screens, because that's what I always felt it was missing, and that's why, as you can see from my Zoom background, that's what I picked as my favorite, because I love the monitors and things like that, because there's lots of readouts and things that the Doctor and team need to look at. So that's what I really liked when we got the new one in the Five Doctors.
Yep. To me, I would agree totally. I liked all the little buttons that he could push. I remember, as they were talking about Bill Hartnell, he made sure that each button did the same thing from episode to episode to episode, because, well, you can't open the door with this time and then open it with something else next time, which I think is a phenomenal thing to look at across everything and go, you can't just willy-nilly pick different things. Yes, if you're in flight, go ahead, hit whatever it makes, but to open the door, it should be the same thing.
Yeah, that got particularly messy kind of around for sure in season 18. Any old thing would do for the doors in particular. It's this lever, it's this thing, it's that thing. And then it was in Castrovalva in season 19 where they decided the big red lever that operates the doors. We'll stick with that.
Yep. So right now we are at season 14, and that was when they did the alternative or secondary control room. I like the look of the whole room, but I was not a fan of the actual console. It was like a desk, the old time desks, and okay, but just not my thing.
Bill, as a big Tom Baker fan, what are your thoughts on the secondary control room?
I love it. It might be, it's one of my favorites. And the thing that you're saying about it, that the console itself is so completely different, is one of the things I like about it. I think that is actually how things work, right? I'm talking to you on my laptop, but I could go over there and use my desktop, and if I go over there, I can use my phone. It's just a different way of operating it. I mean, it might not have the same functionality as the other room, but maybe it does,
Yeah.
True.
And it's cool looking. So
Yeah, I mean, and he specifically says in that story, which is Mask of Mandragora, when we meet the secondary control room, which he says was the primary, and then he switched to the other one. He says, I can't remember the exact wording, but he says, like, I can control the ship just as easily from here as I can from the other one. So he can do it all. But yeah, the simplicity.
You mean poorly?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think simplicity. It's a feature or it's a bug, depending on how you want to look at it. Like there was no column, which I certainly missed the column because I like the sort of up and down motion to show that we're moving. And there was, behind each of those 6 little panels, one was literally a little writing desk. There was pens and paper, and then a couple of the panels had rows of multicolored buttons. So it was very simplistic, sort of whether you call it Jules Verne or sort of, yeah, there's a good photo of it there. More simplistic, but I think that sort of works for the TARDIS, because ostensibly it's a police box on the outside. So who would be surprised by coming in and finding this sort of Victorian looking writing desk that can take you anywhere in space and time?
I also got to say that the time rotor is pretty clunky in a lot of episodes, so not having one,
it took them a while to get the rotor. Yeah, it took them a while to get the rotor right. That is true.
I would totally agree.
And I do like, you can see in that one there, the where your cursor is, Bruce, the stained glass roundels. I really like those.
Definitely. It adds a nuance that wasn't there previously. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
One of a fun little Easter egg in the Lego Dimensions video game, which has a Doctor Who module. It has different TARDIS interiors for each of the Doctors. And if you're playing as the 4th Doctor Lego character, if you play on a day divisible by 4, you get access to the secondary control room.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting.
Now I know that game is gone, Matt. Can you still play it? Like, I know they stopped like supporting it, but is it still playable?
Yeah, if you had downloaded it from the expansion packs and stuff from the servers at the time, it's still playable.
Yeah, you can play it local.
That's cool. So if you still have the Doctor Who module for your Lego Dimensions game, go check it and make sure it's a day divisible by 4, apparently, and you can get access to the secondary control room.
Okay, so on to 15. Kind of bring us back into the white room. Again, I feel that this felt more like a true control room, and as referenced in Twice Upon a Time, that this is the most advanced spaceship ever devised and whatever. And and to me, the things in the classic series said that.
And the reason they went back to this interior, right, wasn't the secondary console room damaged there was like a water or a flooding or something, and like it was all warped, and there's some sort of
I remember hearing that. I don't know if that's I feel like that might be one of the apocryphal tales that wasn't substantiated. I can't remember now, but I do remember hearing that.
I vaguely remember that, but I don't know if that was post storage or something. Yeah, who knows?
So Bruce, you're saying going back to the console room that looks a little more high tech, you think is in better keeping with?
Yeah, I think these do look more high tech.
Okay.
To me,
because I think the other thing that I like about the season 14 console is it doesn't look that way, and maybe for me I like that it sort of suits this weird machine that, I mean, it looks like a piece of shit on the outside, right? It doesn't look like a spaceship on the outside. Why not have it look like this on the inside?
One of the things
I obviously like the other one too.
One of the things I really like about the season 14 set that they bring back in the kind of the Capaldi era and later Matt Smith is the railing around the TARDIS kind of in that shape.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure. That is a
Mhm.
nice touch.
Kind of
Mhm.
echoes that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it a
I never
railing
thought
or
about
is it
that.
just like a place to lean? Like a
No.
leaning? Are those chairs?
Kind of.
Gallifreyan chairs?
They had a chair in series 1.
Well, and there it
There
is
was
in
that
that picture of season 14. Actually, if you page up a little bit, in that picture you can
Yeah.
see that funny color, funny shaped chair.
Oh yeah, the one by the scanner against the wall there.
Oh, yeah.
Over to the. Yep, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yep.
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 Which I believe is the same one from the black and white era, because there were all sorts of knickknacks and bric-a-brac in the
Yeah.
control room in the
That
black
would
and white
come
era.
and go. Yep.
Yeah, yes,
Depending on the
yep,
story.
yep,
we're
yep.
we're going to need a place to sit. We should have a
Yep.
chair
We
there.
need chairs, or we need
Yeah.
the Ormolu clock, or the the whatever. So yeah, that was another
Mhm.
part of the changing interior.
Exactly. So on to 15, and then an update in season 20.
Yep.
Which again, I like the update and what the knobs and things look like.
Yep.
But there's a few more things to actually do.
Yeah, the everything got sort of, I feel like, a little bit tightened up. I think going back to the column conversation from a few minutes ago, I think the column itself like became a lot more it pulsated more. The lights were quicker inside, so that felt a little bit more smooth to me. You can see just to the right and slightly above where your cursor is, Bruce, you can see that monitor that's now installed on the below that on the console over. Yep.
That one.
Yeah, anyway, there's again, something you could actually see a readout on the console, which I liked. And it had appeared, a version of it had appeared in Castrovalva at the beginning of season 19, and then kind of showed itself again in Earthshock. But then it sort of reestablished itself here in season 20, and then with the 5 doctors, there was a monitor on each, or on sort of alternating panels, which I liked.
Right. Yep.
I think so. Jeff, is that your favorite era of the show? Would you say?
That's a good point. Yes. So my favorite era is indeed the 5th Doctor's era. So I think the fact that at least some of his era corresponds, not the majority of it, because it showed up in his last season. But I do think there's something to be said for that as well. That is my favorite era of the show, and probably my favorite control room as well.
Does anyone know?
It seems like I'm sorry, Matt.
Oh,
It
go
just
ahead.
seems like you've been talking about the console as if it's just slowly getting better until it finally gets to this, which is the perfect
So
one.
it's not even final form, but yeah, to certainly a favorite of mine. Yeah, that's true.
I was just gonna ask real quick. Does anyone know when the roundels first started being lit? Kind of that translucent light behind them.
Yeah, I noticed that in season 15 right there.
I think they were to a degree in season 1.
Yeah, they were inconsistently lit even in the black and white era. Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. And you can see there, like in season 8, like the top half of those roundels are lit. So it was inconsistent, and it wasn't sort of behind every roundel like it was really when we get to kind of season 15.
Right.
I also it makes that, I think that shot is from the 3 doctors. It makes me think it's one of the funny things is whenever a doctor gets shoved into a different console room, it seems like they don't notice, even though it looks like a completely different console and everything has changed completely. They're just completely comfortable with it.
Although, Troughton does comment in the 3 Doctors about, oh, you've redecorated. I don't like it. And then Joe makes a comment in the Time Monster about how things look different. So it does get mentioned sometimes, but that's I'd say the exception rather than the norm. But again, it comes up in the 5 Doctors as well when Tegan talks about all the work the doctor did, and she said, "Didn't you repair anything?" And of course he didn't.
Right. And it was brought up in the 50th anniversary as well, because they played on that same thing with between Smith and Tennant.
Yep.
Saying, "Oh, you never do like the the changes."
Yep.
And then from season 21, it went all the way through Baker and McCoy.
Yep.
And then came back completely different in the TV movie. it did seem to me to be a massive room.
Yeah.
And as from this picture, it looks like the console's tiny compared to
Yeah.
the massive room.
Yeah.
But I had a tough time with the editing of the movie is seeing where it fit with, oh, well, here's living room over here. And this, it just didn't seem cohesive to me, even though it was different.
Yeah. Matt, I'd love to hear what you think of this, because your entry point to Doctor Who was the TV movie. So I would love to hear what you thought when you realized like this big, huge space, sort of Victorian, whatever you want to call it, the interior of the TARDIS, mapped to this police box exterior. Like, what was your sort of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was very impressed by it, and I really liked the kind of Victorian or Edwardian design and just the scale of it. And it's really almost difficult to go back and watch like the classic series when you start with the TV movie, because it's like, even to this day, like I would say maybe Capaldi's TARDIS is the only one that really rivals it for me in terms of like interior.
And do you, getting to Bill's question earlier about like, how my favorite console kind of ties in with my favorite era, do you feel like that's true for you as well? Like, do you hold sort of the TV movie in a special type of esteem, and then the sort of control room kind of goes along with that?
Yeah, I would say with the Eighth Doctor era in particular, and for me, kind of hopping on board during the Wilderness years, it was very much, new Doctor Who was the latest from Big Finish or from the novel range, and that very much featured, that console room. The one in my background is kind of what potentially could have happened in like a season 27. It was made in the, I think, early 90s for a BBC Doctor Who night as like a concept. And that would have been cool too. But one of the things I do like about the TV movie is that you get the extension, from above coming down.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. And I will say, because Bruce, you commented on how this console looks small, but the space itself is very vast. And some people I know, Bill, you probably have, and Matt, maybe you have as well, and certainly some others who are probably watching this. There's someone, the person who owns that console from the TV movie, goes to Gallifrey One, or has been there before, the convention, the Doctor Who convention in Los Angeles every February. And there were at least a few years where he brought the console along for photo opportunities, sort of in the photo studio. And I remember the first time I saw it, like, wow, it's really not big, but through the magic of TV production and this vast space, like I never really got the sense of it feeling that small. It did feel a little too simplistic for me, but I loved the rotor. I love the meshing of the sort of the top to the bottom, and I'm really glad that we saw that come back in the new series.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to mention too, just about the season 21 console, kind of the reintroduction after the 5 Doctors, I really did also appreciate like almost the terraced design, within the time rotor, and you get that
right,
and a hint of that in the Eighth Doctor one as well, kind of like a crystalline structure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which
Agreed.
is also a little bit echoed in, the latest console room, with Jodie Whittaker with the crystal piece there. I also wanted to just mention that in the novels, in the Crystal Bucephalus, the Doctor's TARDIS interior gets destroyed, so it kind of, in the book continuity, explains why he has the new console in the 5 Doctors.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
Cool.
Let's skip over the 50th anniversary just for a minute, and we'll go to series 1. To me, that was a vast change. I think it works for Eccleston and Tennant. I think it fits. I like bits and pieces of it, but the fact that the roundels are so small and then they're in the hexagons, it felt like it was missing something for me.
Yeah,
I love it. I loved it immediately. I couldn't believe how cool I thought it was. I think it was also part of this whole feeling that the new series came back and the feelings that that it gave me, I guess.
you're
It was
so-
just I was
yeah.
blown away by
Mhm.
all different parts of it. I mean, I didn't
Mhm.
think when the show came back that I had any reason to expect the TARDIS to look like a police box, you know.
Yeah.
So it was just all these things that felt familiar, but in
Mhm.
this case also
Different.
not at all familiar. I thought it was
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like the echo of the TV movie, and like I said, with the meshing of the rotor, I love that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I like the sort of green you can see there in that photo of series 1, that green sort of tint to it. And I remember, to your point, Bill, like I remember watching Rose, the leaked version for anybody else who saw that one, which I'm sure is a lot of you. And that first scene where Rose, goes into the TARDIS and she walks up the little ramp from inside the police box doors, and then we get this sort of whole pan of the control room, and you see just again this sort of vastness and sense of scale. Like it was great. I mean, it's not my favorite new series console, but it really left a mark. I
Mhm.
think because of what it represented in the context of the show coming back.
Mhm.
There's also more. It looked more organic.
Yeah.
True.
And what kind of, I think this is retroactively referred to as the choral theme.
Yep.
But the ribs kind of of the TARDIS reminded me of like Moya from the series Farscape,
Mm.
in terms of
Okay.
like kind of hinting at that organic structure.
Mm.
And I really appreciated the you saw that in some of the shots, kind of the scaffolding around the outside. It made for some interesting and often comedic moments when you have like Jackie up there, and
Yeah, that it was in that page when you clicked on it. They
Yep.
showed
Yeah,
Jack.
there was a photo of it there. Yeah.
and of
Yeah,
course
There's
in,
Jackie.
in this era we also got to see in the Christmas Invasion the TARDIS wardrobe again
That's true.
Correct.
depicted, which was kind
I
of
love
cool.
that.
Correct.
That was great.
Yep.
And
that. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the other things also is that depending on the director, the TARDIS interior of this era was either lit, kind of in that orange coppery color, or Eros Lynn, especially as a director, he favored that kind of green look. So his episodes especially kind of have that. And when you have, I think there was a bit of a mismatch with um, Joe Ahern's direction at the end of series 1 and then the beginning of series 2, or the Christmas Invasion, where you had the TARDIS lit opposite ways and was going back and forth
Yeah.
with
Mhm.
Rose. It was a little bit noticeable there.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then they updated it for series 5 with multiple levels, which I did like the multiple levels. Again, not a big fan of the console itself. But it served its purpose.
Yeah, I really like the I like the orange cast to everything. I think that works well. I agree with you, Bruce. Like the levels are really cool because again, you're sort of continuing to build on that concept of size and scale of just it's another dimension inside this little police box. So let's really like maximize that. And I love when we see the underside of it. And of course, I'm forgetting what story that's in, but when he's working beneath the console, and we get to see that underside of it, that's great. It might be in some of these photos here.
Under here.
Yeah, you sort of see it in that. Oh yeah, there you go. Yep, that's the one where he's in that sort of harness hanging. That I thought was cool. The controls itself, I thought it was because it was a little bit played for laughs. I mean, there's sort of like a literal like typewriter built into it, and what looks like a windshield wiper fluid container like sort of sticking out of one end of it. So that I didn't love so much, but it had I see what they were going for, and I like the sort of we lost the meshingness of the rotor, but then instead we have this sort of glass kind of bubbles inside of the column, which also kind of worked.
Right.
Yeah, and this one you have bubbles like kind of throughout, and I feel it lends itself really to like that fairy tale theme, especially of series 5. It feels
That's a good
very
point. Yeah,
Willy. It feels like very Willy Wonka to me.
That's a good point.
With like
Sure.
the copper accents
Yeah.
and yeah, an almost great glass elevator with like the glass floor.
That's a really good call. And I think the show was in the Matt Smith era. I mean, certainly became wildly popular around the world, and I think was really attracting not that it wasn't already getting a younger audience, but I think Matt Smith's era did a lot to attract an even bigger one. And I think that's a really good call that I never thought about, Matt. But that kind of fairy tale-ness of it probably really resonated with a lot of younger viewers.
One thing I liked about this one was that it kept the something we neglected to mention when we talked about series 1 is the inside of the door.
Yeah.
I like the
Yes.
I like that inside of the police box door.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
is you know, a bit of a callback to the Peter Cushing films, which I
That's
assume
right.
we'll talk about later.
That's right. Yeah. Good
And
call out.
I also like how, as the new series progressed, you've had more use of like a functional phone,
Yep.
both on the TARDIS console
Mhm.
itself, but then on the police box door.
Yep.
Right. And series 7 updated it. And that's when they put in the spirals up on top, which I absolutely did not like. If they would have had this up and down and this, I would have been okay with it. But I did not like the fact that this stopped going up and down.
Losing that sense of movement in the column, you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. For me.
This interior just feels incomplete to me. Like,
Mhm.
because I'm so much more used to like the Capaldi one with the bookshelves and the kind of the orange glow, that when I see this
Sure.
and in kind of the green or blue, tone, it feels almost like incomplete.
Mhm.
It really grew on me. I think I felt that way when I first saw it, but it really grew on me. Another thing I really like about it was it's in the 5-ish Doctors.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
true.
think that part's cool. What does McCoy say? You'll probably remember it. I don't know, Jeff.
Let's see. It's something like they've turned the TARDIS into a helicopter or something because of the way it rotates at the top
That part
there.
right there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good reason to love it.
And I think Rachel Talalay especially just shot the interior of the console room. She found some really imaginative shots, where
Yeah,
she's getting the
that's true.
camera way up in the corners and you get to see
Yeah.
the full rotation of everything and all the
Yeah.
lights, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, and we have a little bit of an audience here for this panel, and we just got a comment in the chat saying that it's cold and impersonal, like bad 70s sci-fi, which is interesting. I never thought about that, but I could see, because it is very techy, like it feels a lot more technological, probably the most up to this point, maybe kind of rivaling what we saw in the 5 Doctors or what was introduced there, because there's lots of controls and lots of buttons and it looks really futuristic. And but to Bruce's point, like, there's no more movement inside the column other than the light. And honestly, I don't love the helicopter, the swirly things at the top of the console. But I do like this room, but I like what comes in series 8 even more.
What do you think about the kind of the gooey telepathic circuits that we get here?
I'm glad you asked. I don't love it. I like the idea behind it. I would say I don't like the execution of literally sticking your fingers into this sort of soft substance. But I understand, like, okay, you're making a physical connection to facilitate a telepathic one. So I can get behind it. I just don't love how that basically an entire panel of the console is given up to this sort of squishy stuff that you stick your fingers into.
Right. Well, that brings us to series 8, which is,
I love this.
as Capaldi said, it's atmospheric.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on it. I still like the levels that are there. But to me, it's starting to go too dark. And one of my favorites, which is obviously behind me, is the Davison. It's very light. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like that, is there's a lightness so you can see people, you can see what they're doing and things that are going on, rather than, well, they're cast in a shadow and now you can't see everything that's going on or catching everything.
And this is my second favorite interior after the TV movie, both of which are dark and atmospheric. So it may be whatever you first come into Doctor Who with that you
could be
onto.
Could be
somewhat true in the season 14 as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I agree with you. I think I like that type of TARDIS interior.
And I like the way that
good looking.
I love the high sort of the high technology of it. It's like, I think it was, it started in Series 7, and to me, it sort of it completed with the Capaldi era, and sort of the way the console room were generated along with him, with the addition of the bookcases, because then you get some of the old with the kind of really technological stuff. I mean, to me, like this, like it really looks like, again, kind of like with the Five Doctors console, it looks like a machine that can traverse space and time. So that I really, really like. And again, the sense of scale, going back to your comment, Bruce, about the levels, like, and Matt, I think it was you that mentioned the way that directors like Rachel Talalay could shoot any of the console rooms, but I think this one in particular, like, could really take advantage of the different, you could see something up top while also being in the console room, or vice versa. So just a lot of really cool potential for visual interest in a way that certainly the original series could never have done.
And I like the redress of it, that kind of the virtual one in your background, Bill, which is what Missy's TARDIS may have looked like in the Capaldi era, kind of taking that, okay, if we had pieces that we could fit in front of the bookcases and change out the time rotor, but still give it its own kind of interesting twist.
Yeah. And of course darker, because the master / Missy's TARDIS always must be darker.
Yep. And then Series 11 to current. I will say flat out that I like the crystal concept.
Yeah.
I do not like the interpretation of it. And to me, it is again too dark.
Yeah,
I want to be able to see what they're
all.
doing.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that loves this one.
I don't either.
And this one, depending on how it's lit, can look very kind of plasticky. My concern is, like, with the crystal and stuff, and we should probably add, they updated it between Series 11 and 12. They took out some of the Gallifreyan symbols on the staircase, which I really enjoyed, but they removed those, and they added a staircase in the back that they sometimes sit on and have conversations, the fam and the TARDIS team. But it always felt like you'd never get comfortable. Like you're always sitting on something really sharp or pointy.
Right.
I guess.
Right.
That's a good point. It's been a while since I've really felt, well, I shouldn't say that. I guess some of the ones in Capaldi era, there seemed to be a place you could go and sit down. But even in the like, I think season 2 or series 2, series 1, there's a chair that looks comfy that they can sit in.
Yeah, a little sort of bench. Yep.
Yeah.
I do like the depiction of the chameleon circuit. That's kind of cool to see because if the chameleon circuit was functional, you'd want to know what the TARDIS looked like before you left the ship.
Yeah, I agree. I like that.
You're able to see it, and then of course the Doctor gets a custard cream dispenser, which is amazing.
Yeah. I feel like custard
or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, I like that little chameleon circuit indicator. And for any sort of collectors out there, Reperto Replicas has a version of that that I have here in my media room. I should have brought it down. But yeah, I do like that. I like the sort of the gold hue to things. But yeah, I'm kind of with everybody else. Like, I don't love the execution of this. I don't love, again, it doesn't look like there's much you can do with this console, like as far as buttons or like sort of things to do to fly this time and space machine. So I don't like the fact that all that's kind of missing. In the chat here from some of our attendees to this virtual panel, it sounds like people don't love it, but we did have a call out here to the kind of monitor made with steam on the console that sort of hisses into existence as needed. I think we really only see it a couple of times, but I agree that is kind of a neat addition.
That was added for Series 12 when they did some of the updates. And one of the cool things about that is it's an in-camera, it's a practical effect. So they're actually projecting it onto the steam.
That's
so
cool.
It's really cool that they have that interaction on screen.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I've heard that before, but I forgot.
It's interesting to me that like so many things about the Chibnall era, I just think it's dark and complicated, and I can't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, to a degree, the TARDIS interior does relate to the series as it's going on.
True.
You know, like, oh, we do need a chair in there. Oh, we need a hat stand. Oh, you know, and so it does morph within itself, you know, episode to episode. And getting back to the 50th anniversary, I liked when it melded the two from the
Yeah.
previous,
That
you
was
know,
kinda cool.
classic
Yep.
and the
Although
Oral.
he kind of skipped over the TV movie, but yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the War Doctor did, but yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he did.
One of the things I liked in season 26 of the classic series was, you know, the couple of times you did get, or I think the one time you got the TARDIS interior in Battlefield, you know, they only had a corner of the set left at that time,
Mhm.
and but it was actually lit really cool, you know, very
Yeah.
dark,
Yeah.
which made it look less cheap, I guess.
Yeah, and for sure by that point, like if you look at the roundels that you see in that scene in Battlefield, which is the last time we see the TARDIS interior
right
in the
there.
classic series, they are not the roundel walls because those were at that point damaged and not usable. So that's why practically why it's lit so dark, so that you won't see how sort of cheap the roundels look because they aren't the original. But yeah, I agree that that really worked, and I think they could have done more with that in the classic series as far as you know, basically what they never did in the classic series that they did do in the new series as far as lighting it differently, like you were saying earlier, Matt. They you know, everything, it was the 80s and everything was very, very overlit. So it was just always sort of this gleaming bright white, which cool from a futuristic kind of technology standpoint, but kind of a bummer from a different, more interesting you know, camera angle standpoint.
Getting back to Jodie's TARDIS real quick, what do folks think about the kind of the exterior pylons moving up and down? It seemed like that was something that they did more in series 11 that they dropped as it went on. I think they became more static, or I don't know if like the motors on set broke or what the deal was there. But what did folks think of that?
I wasn't a fan, but then again, I'm not a fan of that particular configuration and lighting and whatnot. So
We have a comment in the chat that it looks like a dead spider on its back. I guess I could sort of, yeah.
So I guess now that we've covered everything, and yes, there are things beyond what's been shown on television. There's the artist renderings within the animation that I think they're trying to be as true as they can. We've got comics that they can do other things with. Matt, you had alluded to a couple of other things as we were talking initially.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of TARDIS interiors that we may want to talk about that we saw on the series as well. So there's you know, like in Twice Upon a Time, there's like the recreations of like the first Doctor's interior, and I had heard that a couple of the set pieces within it are actual original props that were used in William Hartnell's console room, rented out from the same prop studio even as the original was, which is kind of cool. And then you saw kind of a slightly different version of that in a little bit earlier in yep. And then of course there's the console as it appeared in an Adventure in Space and Time.
Mm-hmm.
Although as it appeared in Twice Upon a Time, it was a little bit different.
Right.
But then you also have like a modern, almost futuristic TARDIS that was depicted in Heaven Sent, the one that saves Clara. That one's a really kind of cool looking one as well. I think that's the one that Clara and me fly off in at the end. And then, of course, you have the Fugitive Doctor's TARDIS with its kind of blue exterior.
Right.
Which may be my third favorite one in terms of looks. That's a really cool one too.
Okay, so we've covered what we like. So I think Jeff and I are on board with the same one that we like, the the Davison era after the 20th anniversary. What are, Bill, what's yours, and Matt, what's yours?
It's a tough one.
We lost your audio, Bill.
Oh, Bill, you're cutting out there.
Yep, it's gone. Matt, what's
So is the question, what's my favorite TARDIS?
Yeah,
interior?
which one? The
Well, absolute favorite would probably be the Eighth Doctor TV movie one.
okay. All right. All
Um,
right.
Can you hear me now?
Nope. Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with the season 14 one. I, for all the reasons I think I said before.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
In the books, there was the tertiary called Council Room, which is kind of made out of stone and is lit in green, and that one is referenced in some of the new adventures, and it's kind of like the primordial, like original TARDIS template.
Yeah.
We have a question from the chat. Felicity asks, is there a room you'd like them to show in future episodes?
This one right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill and I
I'd like to
changed-
see a Centaur trip over a pool chair.
I have a
Good
version
little
of that for my background as well, but it's Leela swimming in that same pool. But I think that'd be cool to see. I'd love to see some sort of a workspace laboratory, some sort of a space for the Doctor. Like, I think that'd be cool to see. For book readers out there, especially the Eighth Doctor era, and Matt, this will probably resonate with you. I'd love to see the Butterfly Room. That was mentioned, I think, multiple times in the Eighth Doctor adventures from BBC Books. I think there's a lot of spaces, because we really, in the modern era, we got one view of the wardrobe room, lots of control room stuff,
Some corridors
and Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. That's kind of about it. So I just love
bit
to
of
see
the
more
library.
but I'd love to see anything more. Like, it's a literally endless amount of space. Like, let's see more of it.
It'd be fun for them to for her to come across a room that we've seen before in the classic series. They'd have to reconstruct it, but like, I don't know, come across Adric's room or something and get misty-eyed.
Yeah.
Or even in the cloisters would be cool.
Yeah. I've changed my background to the cloisters here, which I think we really only saw in Legopolis. We saw another cloister room in the TV movie, but I really liked the look of this, because you can see the the ivy and the columns, but then you see the roundels as well, and I like that mix of sort of the technology with the organic earthy materials.
Let's see. Any other questions that maybe the audience might have for the panel?
Not to go too negative, but do you have a least favorite console room?
Ooh.
I mean, I think for me, it's probably I think it's Jodie's. I think it's the current era, because it sort of is. Other than the color, like, I don't like the like I said earlier, the fact that there's not really any sort of controls on the console. I really dislike the rotor, the actual column. You kind of mentioned this before, Matt, the kind of up and down things above it. I didn't like those. Yeah, I really don't like any of that, which is really too bad, because I really love and Matt, you and I have talked about this. I love the exterior. I love the police box in Jodie's era, but I just really don't like the control room.
My least favorite would be the Peter Cushing one.
We didn't even touch on that, but yeah, I also don't like that one.
Yeah,
I really do like that one, but you have to assume that it's a time machine that he built in his back garden, right?
That is true. That's a good point. Put in context, it looks like that. And so here's your question, though, Bill. So between Doctor Who and the Daleks and Dalek Invasion of Earth, 2150 AD, his control room gets, it's sort of this jumbled mess in Doctor Who and the Daleks, but in the second film, it's very orderly and neat and controlled, but still the same type of basic design. Like, did you like one better than the other?
I never noticed what you're talking about. I guess I like the first one.
pull out your Blu-rays, which if you're in the US, you can get Blu-rays of both films from Kino Lorber.
I think that I don't remember that the TARDIS interior being such a big part of the
it wasn't at all.
second film.
It's barely seen in the beginning when our friendly neighborhood policeman on the beat comes inside, and I think that's it.
Oh, I like this. Someone in the chat says Cushing thinks he built it because that's what the division wants him to think.
Oh, there's got to be another panel at Console Room 2022 that goes all into the division, but I would sign off on that theory, Robert. Like I'll co-sign that.
Now, see, in my head canon, the Cushing stuff was just a movie made by Earthlings to be like the Doctor. So it's not really, so potentially it could show up on a TV monitor within our series and prove that it's just a movie.
Well, they did plan to put the poster, wasn't it? A movie poster that was going to be in the background at unit headquarters.
Yeah.
Yep.
The 50th.
Right.
Yeah, the rights, from what I heard at least, the rights to show that on screen were just too expensive, so they didn't do it. So it was a very practical.
The rights to show the movie poster.
Yeah, because they're not owned by the BBC or anything. So
yeah, but I mean, okay.
Who knows if that's
I just write Star Wars on the board back here? Do we have to pay for that?
Could be apocryphal. Who knows? Maybe there'll
Do
be
we
a panel.
have any final thoughts? I think we're
coming down to the final few minutes.
Yeah.
For those that are watching this in the future, be sure to check out all the other panels that are live.
Yeah.
There will be others that will be published the day of, on January 22nd, that are being pre-recorded. So we'll have those. Check into Discord where we can chat with people and kind of keep a bit of continuity between those that are not in person and those that are in person. We've got an escape room this year that does tie both the in-person and external people, so you can participate both ways. Trying to think all of the things that are going through my head and not coming out.
Yeah, there'll be all sorts of good stuff going on. I'm not sure which day of the convention you'll be watching this panel on, but I know that
it's over.
That could be. You could be watching this in this space year 2150 AD, and we'd never know it.
Exactly.
I kind of hope you are actually. But I know Bill and I are on a number of panels. We're talking about welcoming back Russell T. Davis to the show starting in 2023, as far as we know. Doctor Who script editors, extras, 50 years of season 9, because we'll be celebrating that milestone next year. So a variety of good stuff happening throughout the weekend, and there'll be other pre-recorded panels I think to watch as well.
Yep.
And to Bruce's point, if you haven't looked in the Discord, I highly recommend it. Like that's how the whole convention was done last year, was kind of through Discord and pre-recorded panels, and I thought it worked really, really well to have people sort of checking in and chatting with each other kind of throughout the weekend and even beyond. So definitely look for the Console Room Discord on your favorite mobile device, or I think it works on your computer too, but I'm not certain.
Yes. And I would like to remind everybody to promote Console Room. And if you thought this was interesting, or you had a topic that you're like, oh, I'd really like to talk about that with somebody else and be a panelist, let us know. It doesn't hurt unless you twist Bill's arm just enough, then he squeaks a little bit. Other than that, it's talking amongst other fans about whatever the topic is, and suggest topic ideas, participate, show up in person, all that good stuff. So other than that, a reminder that we will also be wearing masks in person. So, and everyone needs to be vaccinated.
Good call.
I think that's all that I can think of. Anybody else got any other thoughts on the TARDIS consoles, or
Cheers
like-
to the hidden bar with River Song.
you're
That's
here?
right. That's right. The drinks bar hidden behind one of the
Here.
roundels. And if anybody on Discord or in person wants to, I just changed my background again to the delightful TARDIS that we got in for the Ronnie in Mark of the Ronnie. So if anybody wants to talk about that, that holds a place in my heart, because I love the column. I love the sort of up and down and rotation movement of her column. So if
It
you want,
incorporates Phantom Zone technology.
right, that's right. So if you want to talk about that, assuming you're watching this over console room weekend, you can find me. I'm almost certain in the bar, probably with Bill and Matt and others. So come find me and we'll talk about the Ronnie's TARDIS.
See, right there, we've got a possibility of one for 2023 is
That's right.
the other TARDISes.
That's right. That's right. I'm there.
So I think that just about does it for us. Thank you all for attending, and take care. Stay safe.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.